And we'll start off with connect and publish to FME Flow. So you'll need to connect FME Form to FME Flow. You'll remember FME Form contains FME Workbench, which is where you author your workspaces, and then FME Flow is where you can create self-serve portals, automations, and schedules to run those workspaces with. So I'm gonna jump over to my lab, so make sure you've got follow presenter toggled on. So how do we get those workspaces from FME Form or FME Workbench to FME Flow? Well, basically they need to connect to each other. And so we'll create a web connection to do that. And then we will transfer the workspaces using the process called publishing. So as you'll remember, FME Workbench, we used to author the workspaces, and then we'll be able to publish it. We also have the ability to republish the workspace after some updates are made and download the workspace. Download different workspaces or the same one from FME Flow. But if you need to make some updates and then put it back onto FME Flow, that would be the way to do it. So a key concept to remember here, repositories. Repositories are basically like folders that store your workspaces and all their data on FME Flow. So it consists of the FMW files, which are the workspaces, and then also any metadata and other data that is needed to run those workspaces, and that data is stored in the FME Flow database. As we mentioned before, we remember the FME Flow core, and so these repositories are managed by the core, and then you can access the repositories and their contents through the web interface using the Workspaces tab. So to transfer your workspaces to FME Flow, remember we're going to publish them. If we're going to move them from form to flow, if we're going to move them from flow to form, we're going to download them. So there's two ways to access this in FME Workbench. You can access it through the file menu, or you can access it on the top toolbar, or you can access downloading from FME Flow from the Start tab. You can also update the workspaces directly through FME Flow, the web UI, where you can upload and download the workspaces there. You can just select the workspace and click download, or you can also click upload. There is a bit of a disadvantage here, as publishing can package all your connections and data to transfer with the workspace, whereas the upload doesn't exactly do that. So overall, I'd recommend doing the publish method. So like I said, to connect FME Form to FME Flow, we're going to need a web connection, and that's going to allow the two applications to talk to each other. We'll be able to create this web connection in FME Tools and Options. And then we have to put in the FME Flow URL and then the username and password. On our training machines, we've already got this web connection created for us, so we won't need to worry about that today, but we will be using the web connection that's been created for us. So then if you have multiple web connections on your FME Flow, which most people do, I think I have like 10 on my form. Oh, sorry, I meant form earlier. Misspoke there. If you have multiple Flow web connections on your form, you'll have to select one to pick which flow you would like to publish the workspace to. Select the repository that you'll store the workspace in, and then give the workspace a name. There's also the option to upload connections. We will do this tomorrow in an exercise and work with connections on FME Flow. But for now, we're just going to publish a workspace and its data. The next step is registering the workspace with services. These are how the workspace will run on FME Flow. Again, we'll touch on this a little bit more later on in the course, but for now we're going to stick with the job submitter service, and that allows the FME workspace to run as is. It's basically the closest to running a workspace in FME Workbench. It doesn't change the inputs or outputs in different ways, just runs the workspace as it already is. Data download and data streaming we'll also cover in this course, and those allow you to access your data different ways with different methods. So we have a question. Why do you use multiple users? I understand admin, why more? So the multiple users, so if I was not an admin, I wouldn't have the admin connection available. I wouldn't be able to log in with admin. So maybe I'm just a training user. So I would log in with the training user. I guess what I mentioned with like multiple flows is I can connect to, I think I have like, let's say about 10 FME flow connections. They're different FME flows entirely. So I likely would use the same username. It would be Bailey for most of those flows, but it'd be different flows. So I'd have to select which instance I would like to put the workspace on. So for our training machines, we only have one. And so we will use the training FME Flow web connection. And I do believe that is created with the admin user, but you can also create another connection if you'd like to go through creating a connection. Okay, so we register with the services, and then that's usually the last step in publishing. Republishing a workspace is a bit simpler than publishing a workspace. It's just a single click. All the previous settings used in publishing are maintained, so you won't be able to configure different options like change the services if you need. You'd have to go through the publish option to do that. And you can also download workspaces that are already on FME Flow. You can make those edits and then republish it. Basically, the downloaded workspaces are copies of the original that remain on FME Flow, so you have to remember to publish it back up once those edits are made. And we will also cover publishing source data. Oops, I scrolled too far. There we go. Along with workspaces. So our input files are source data. So in this example, we have a map info tab file that we'd like to publish, and we can select upload data files to do that. And here we can configure and select which files if we had multiple, or if say we only wanted to include one of the files. We could select that here. We will also cover that a bit more tomorrow in more detail. But it's important to be aware of and remember that we have to get our data up to FME Flow and have FME Flow have access to it to be able to run it. Okay.